Mid-generation console refreshes are becoming super common, but there was a time when these upgrades truly meant something. For example, Nintendo revolutionized the Game Boy experience through the introduction of the Game Boy Color. The PS4 Pro and Xbox One X brought 4K gaming to the masses, setting a new standard for console graphics. Even the OLED Switch gave players noticeable quality of life upgrades with its stunning screen, enhanced kickstand, and Ethernet-ready dock. But now, with the announcement of the first upgrade of this generation, the PS5 Pro, boasting an upgraded GPU, advanced ray tracing, AI-driven upscaling, and an eye-watering price tag, it doesn't feel worth getting excited about. These mid-gen refreshes are losing their impact and excitement, offering cutting-edge technology, but failing to exceed the expectations of the players. In this video, I'll be breaking down what the PS5 Pro actually is and what it brings to the table, how it stacks up against the base PS5 and other consoles, and most importantly, whether it's really worth your time and your money. So what really is the PS5 Pro? The original PS5 launched at the end of 2020 with an AMD Zen 2 processor and an RDNA 2 GPU with 36 compute units, giving players a total of 10.28 teraflops of processing power. This puts the GPU for the PS5 on par with an AMD Radeon RX 6700. And the PS5 also came equipped with 16GB of GDDR6 memory and an 825GB SSD. According to the new release that we've got from PlayStation, the PS5 Pro will feature a 67% increase in compute units, and that makes it roughly equivalent to an AMD Radeon RX 6800 GPU. The specifications for the console that have been leaked suggest that the PS5 Pro's GPU will deliver up to 33.5 teraflops of power, which is a huge increase from the base model. The Pro keeps the 16GB memory that came on the original PS5, but does boast a 28% improvement in memory speed. We're also getting a much bigger SSD in the console at 2TB, which is more than double what we got on the original console. Overall, this is going to give us a 45% performance boost compared to the original PS5. Ray tracing performance sees a notable boost, with rays being cast at double or even triple the speed of the base PS5, and PlayStation also announced a new AI-driven upscaling technology called PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. This will work similarly to Nvidia's DLSS or AMD's FSR. On top of all these upgrades, the PS5 Pro is also going to feature PS5 Pro Game Boost, which will improve the performance and visuals of over 8,500 backwards compatible PS4 games, as well as supported PS5 titles. The PS5 already supports improving performance of PS4 titles, but this Game Boost will take it one step further. And the PS5 is also going to support variable refresh rate and 8K gaming, which we can presume is upscaled rather than true 8K. Now let's talk about what's missing and how it compares in price. Unlike the original PS5, the PS5 Pro will not include a vertical stand or a disk drive, and these accessories will need to be purchased separately, as is already the case with the Slim. The vertical stand is priced at $30 USD, 30 euros, 25 Great British pounds, or 55 New Zealand dollars, whilst the detachable disk drive will cost 80 USD, 120 euros, 100 pounds, and 170 New Zealand dollars. The PS5 Pro console itself will launch at 700 US, 700 pounds, 800 euros, and 1,380 New Zealand dollars, which is absolutely insane. So to get the full experience by adding a stand and a disk drive, the total cost for the PS5 Pro will be just shy of 810 US, 950 euros, 825 pounds, or 1,605 New Zealand dollars, giving the same experience as what you would have received with a disc edition launch PS5. In most regions, the PS5 Pro will cost close to double the price of the original digital PS5 edition at launch, but in New Zealand, the Pro will actually cost more than double the digital version's launch price, and nears double the price of the standard PS5 when you actually include all the accessories you're going to buy. So now I want to compare how the PS5 and the PS5 Pro compare to the PS4 and the PS4 Pro in terms of performance and pricing. The PS4 launched with 1.84 teraflops of GPU power and 8GB of GDDR5 memory, whilst the PS4 Pro upgraded this to 4.2 teraflops. If the leaks turn out to be true, the PS5 Pro is going to offer 3.25 times the GPU power of the original PS5, which is quite a significant jump compared to the 2.28 times the power we saw between the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. And even though you can try justify that we're getting such a massive power increase with the PS5 Pro, The price feels incredibly steep. The PS4 and the PS4 Pro launched at the same price point just 3 years apart, making the PS5 Pro's hefty price tag a sharp change compared to Sony's previous generational upgrades. Even accounting for inflation, the PS4 launched at around $533 US and the PS4 Pro at $517, almost $200 less than what we'll be paying for the PS5 Pro. And it's even more than that when you consider the PS5 still doesn't have a disk drive on the Pro model. At the end of the day though, what matters more than the actual specs is how the users are going to experience the hardware and the difference it makes for the games they play. During the showcase, we saw side-by-side comparisons of games running on both the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, and when placing the games side by side like this, you can clearly see the differences in performance and visual quality due to increased power and features such as PSSR on the PS5 Pro. That being said, to actually notice some of these improvements between consoles, they often need to be slowed down or zoom in, which undermines the impact Sony has tried to achieve by making these upgrades and improvements. There really is no arguing the fact that the PS5 Pro offers better graphics, faster performance, and an overall improved experience, but the differences aren't dramatic enough for players to notice without these side-by-side comparisons. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact as time goes on, major graphical improvements are providing diminishing returns. And even though the upgrades themselves are relatively major with an almost 50% increase in power, you just don't notice the returns. Yet a decade or two ago, an upgrade of this magnitude would have been game-changing. In reality, if you already own a PS5 or the PS5 Slim, you're not going to miss these enhancements during regular use. Yes, the games perform better, but the improvement is subtle enough that for the average player, the experience on the base PS5 remains excellent. For most players, upgrading to the PS5 Pro won't feel like a game-changing leap. It's more about fine-tuning with improvements that will only be noticeable to those looking for them, and at that price, it's really just not justifiable. However, that 30th anniversary PS5 Pro looks fucking gorgeous, and I am so tempted to go against everything I've just said and buy it. The PS5 Pro and even the PS5 Slim has not come without its controversies though, specifically the detachable disc drive. Having a detachable disc drive does have some pros, for example cost efficiency. By having the disc drive as a separate component, Sony is now only having to produce one console instead of two, which helps to keep production costs lower, which could lead to potential savings for consumers, though not likely. We're likely going to see that just turn into profit for Sony. I think the main benefits though is flexibility for consumers and repairability. By having your console have the ability to upgrade to a disc console, users can transition from digital to disc without having to purchase an entirely new console, and the decision to use the same disc drive for both the Slim and the Pro means consumers won't have to buy accessories twice if they choose to upgrade, and also if your disc drive fails, you don't lose your entire console. The disc drive can be sent for repair or replaced while you continue to use your PS5 digitally. However, in its current state, the cons of the separate disc drive definitely seem to outweigh the pros. The biggest issue that I've seen with this disc drive is that it requires internet activation. And more than anything, this is a huge risk for the future. If Sony shuts down their activation service for this disc drive, the drive will become unusable, making physical games useless unless you own an original PS5 with an integrated disc drive. And an even more fun, the disc drive can suddenly become unusable without warning, as we've seen this week. At the time of recording, several users earlier this week reported that the firmware updates can cause your disc drive to stop working on the PS5 Slim. Some users reported that the console showed an error and then ejected the disc mid-game, whilst others said the disc drive update made the discs unreadable. And though this was fixable with a hard reset, this is a major concern that a firmware update can suddenly make your console useless, and only affected the consoles with separate disc drives. There's also huge concerns for game preservation. Since digital media doesn't grant you true ownership as it can be revoked or altered, this move to a separate disc drive raises huge concerns about game preservation. Physical collections could be severely devalued in the long run, especially if you cannot activate or use disc drives in the future, creating a major issue for consumer rights and the longevity of gaming media. Concord is a fantastic example of this. Following Sony pulling the plug on the game after only a few weeks, players reported that after receiving their refund, the game was removed from their console entirely. Although they received a refund for the product, this is a chilling reminder that digital ownership means nothing if a company decides to remove access. Your games, your purchases, gone, just like that. It's a clear signal of the risks we face with an all-digital future, and it's a dangerous precedent for game preservation. Some people are trying to justify the extremely high price of the PS5 Pro by comparing it to the launch prices of previous consoles adjusted for inflation. At its base price of $699 USD, the PS5 Pro is the second most expensive console in Sony's history, just behind the PS3 at launch. However, this doesn't tell the full story. The PS5 Pro doesn't come with a disc drive, as I've already mentioned, which costs an additional $79 USD, so this puts the real price at launch at $779 USD, matching the PS3's launch price and still without a stand. If you include the stand as well, the price jumps to $810 US, officially making the PS5 Pro the most expensive console Sony has ever released. This is an insane price jump, especially considering this is meant to be a mid-generation refresh, when consoles are meant to get cheaper in price and provide us more power, not a brand new console. At the end of the day, the PS5 Pro is undeniably a significant improvement over the original PS5. The increase in power, better visuals, faster performance, and the flexibility of a detachable disc drive are all great features, and allowing players to upgrade their console without having to buy an entirely new one is a step forward in terms of consumer choice and repairability. However, the fact that this disc drive needs internet activation means it's on borrowed time. Once Sony shuts down those servers, the disc drive essentially becomes a paperweight, leaving your physical games collection in limbo. And that's a huge downside, especially for those concerned about game preservation, or people who just love to collect physically. And then there's the price. At $700 US or more with accessories, the PS5 Pro carries an eye-watering price tag that's really just tough to justify. For most players, the original PS5 or even the PS5 Slim still provides an excellent gaming experience at a far more reasonable price, especially if you can pick up a used console at a discounted price. So who's this console really for? The die-hard PlayStation fans, the enthusiasts wanting to game in 8K, people who want that gorgeous 30th anniversary PS5 Pro, and those with money to burn will undoubtedly jump at the chance to own the PS5 Pro, but for the average gamer, the improvements simply don't justify the cost. In short, unless you fall into one of those very specific categories, the PS5 Pro isn't a must-have upgrade. You'll likely get just as much enjoyment and save a lot of money by sticking with the PS5 you already have. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the PS5 Pro. Are you going to be picking it up? Are you only going to be picking up the 30th anniversary version if you can? And I'll see you all in the next one.